Ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant day to all of you, and thank you for taking the time to watch this webinar on gold and the BSP. Before anything else, I would like to thank the CSEN, the Bank Negara Malaysia, and the OSSP for hosting this event and coming up with a very interesting agenda. Gold has been making the rounds in financial media as its price continues to test new highs. After trading within a roughly $300 price range from 2014 to 2018, the spot gold price started to ascend in mid-2019. Investors sought safe havens amid a confluence of factors, such as the growing proportion of negative yielding debt, escalating trade and geopolitical tensions, and dovish monetary policies among advanced economies. In 2020, the spot gold price reached a new all-time high of $2,075.47 per FTO. The significant rise of gold prices this year, expected or otherwise, has led to greater attention on gold and its underpinnings. For all of us here, this conference serves as an excellent venue to talk about the prospects, issues, and risks and opportunities for precious metals, including gold. While we can talk about these things at length in the next 20 to 30 minutes, I will instead talk about the relationship of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas with gold through the small-scale mining industry. My goal is to underscore that the links between the country, the BSP, and gold form a symbiotic relationship. We will look at existing laws, describe the relationship between the BSP and small-scale miners, and conclude with an outlook. From here on, I'll refer to gold producers, small-scale miners, and other individuals who sell their gold to the BSP as panners. Let me give you some context on gold mining in the Philippines. The Philippines is one of the most mineral-rich countries in the world. According to the Mines and Geosciences Bureau of the Philippines, or MGB, the country has an estimated $840 billion worth of untapped mineral wealth. In 2018, the output from mining activities was valued at around $3.4 billion. Meanwhile, the total production value of metallic minerals for the same period was about $2.3 billion, with gold accounting for about 37%. The Philippines is one of the top producers of gold in Asia and in the world. Based on the World Gold Council, the Philippines ranks number 3 in Asia and number 24 in the world based on gold production in 2018. Currently, the country has 8 gold mines and 2 gold processing plants. MGB data shows that around 75% of the gold mined in the country in 2015 came from small-scale miners. Small-scale miners, or panners, are individuals or groups that organize themselves voluntarily to form duly licensed cooperatives that engage in the extraction of minerals or ore-bearing materials from the ground. They rely heavily on manual labor, using simple implements and methods rather than explosives or heavy mining equipment. An important milestone in the country's mining industry was the passage of the People's Small-Scale Mining Act. This act is meant to generate employment opportunities, especially in the mineral-rich areas where people have little means to access other employment opportunities. Accordingly, various government agencies work together to put in place an orderly and rational scheme for the development and utilization of mineral resources in certain areas. More importantly, under said act, panners are mandated to sell to the BSP the gold they produce from any mineral area. The BSP, in turn, is required to buy the gold at prevailing market prices. In short, the benefit of this law is it allows panners to access international market prices through the BSP. 4 years after the Small Scale Mining Act, the Philippine Mining Act of 1995 was enacted to revitalize the Philippine mining industry through fiscal reforms and incentives. It is considered as one of the most socially and environmentally sensitive legislations in its class, as it contains specific provisions that consider the following. First, local government empowerment. Second, respect and concern for the indigenous cultural communities. Third, equitable sharing of benefits of natural wealth. Fourth, economic demands of the present generation while providing the necessary foundation for future generations. And fifth, protection for and wise management of the environment. Of these two laws, the People's Small-Scale Mining Act of 1991 marked an important turning point for the BSP and the Philippine gold industry. The act formalized the relationship between the BSP and the local gold industry through the panners. This is what we refer to as a symbiotic relationship between the BSP and the panners. The passage of the legislation resulted in the following advantages for panners. First, panners have a guaranteed buyer of gold in the BSP, which allows them to access fair market prices and rely on the creditworthiness of the BSP. When panners engage other gold buyers, these buyers may quote off-market prices with no assurance that transactions are conducted at arm's length. Second, panners can access the BSP's gold buying stations across the country, thereby ensuring that the gold transactions are safe and legal. Finally, panners stand to benefit from the BSP's efforts to lobby for the removal of the sales tax imposed on panners. On the other hand, the BSP gained in the following ways. First, the Act provided a steady supply of gold locally, thereby allowing for the organic growth of the gross international reserves. Second, the increase in the BSP's gold holdings led to diversification, security, insurance, and liquidity benefits. Finally, the accumulation of gold in the reserves has led to the development of the bank's internal capabilities consistent with a prudent framework for managing the bank's reserves. I think now is a good time to explain the process cycle from the purchase of the gold from the panners to the refinery and the storage of the gold holdings. Panners sell their gold to the BSP's various gold buying stations at prevailing global market rates. Purchased gold in the form of bars or discs are then refined at the BSP Security Plant Complex or SPC and converted into London Good Delivery bars. Once these bars are transferred to the BSP's bullion vault, these form part of the country's reserves. Some of the gold may also be made into semi-finished gold in the forms of grains and sheets for resale to local jewelers and industrial users. The BSP may periodically enter into location swap transactions to mobilize the good delivery bars and make this readily available for trading internationally. Now, let's take a closer look at the benefits to the panners that I previously outlined. The first is the ability of the panners to access international market prices without needing to meet the minimum requirements for capital or transaction volume. How are these prices determined? The BSP bases its daily gold rates on quotes submitted by selected London Bullion Market Association market makers. These rates, which are published on a daily basis, are applied to the gold sales of panners. Panners, in turn, are paid in Philippine pesos based on the official peso-dollar exchange rate for the day. Second, the BSP has established buying stations in mineral-rich areas which are marked on the map. The existence of these stations make it easier for pawners to sell their gold while reducing their cost and the risk related to transporting their gold. Currently, the BSP has 5 gold buying stations across the country, situated near the gold mining areas. In particular, there are 2 in Luzon, 2 in Mindanao, and 1 in Metro Manila, which also serves as the gold refinery. Third, pawners are assured that their transactions are legal and secure. They take comfort in knowing they receive a fair deal from the BSP's accurate gold weighing and assaying processes, something that is not certain in an informal market. Furthermore, under the BSP's gold buying program, the BSP pays an initial amount equivalent to 99% of the value of the delivery based on the as-received weight and the preliminary assay by specific gravity method. Outside of the Act, the BSP has been a champion of pawners in their battle against taxation. In 2011, the BSP's gold purchases declined due to the stricter implementation by the Revenue Authority of an existing tax collection scheme. This scheme requires the BSP to deduct withholding and excise taxes from its payment on gold purchases from pawners, thereby reducing the income of sellers by as much as 7%. The tax scheme resulted in a 96% drop in the BSP's gold purchases in 2012, as pawners chose to sell their gold to other informal buyers to avoid the taxes. This situation encouraged the growth of informal markets, which, based on anecdotal evidence, exacerbated the illegal export of gold to other countries. Indeed, the tax collection scheme had an adverse impact on both pawners and the BSP. For the pawners, the imposition of taxes resulted in lower income, further marginalizing these people who were engaged in subsistence mining. As for the BSP, it lost the opportunity to build up its gold reserves bought with local currency. However, after years of discussions with lawmakers, Republic Act No. 11256 was signed into law on March 29, 2019. Under this law, the income derived from the direct or indirect sale of gold to the BSP by registered pawners and accredited traders are exempt from income and excise taxes. Given the newly enacted law, the BSP hopes that the volume of local gold purchases will normalize towards pre-2011 quantities when gold sales were subjected to taxes. Following the release of the implementing rules and regulations of Republic Act 11256, there has been an increase in the BSP's gold purchases seen in 2020. Lastly, the positive impact of the BSP's gold buying program is estimated to benefit 500,000 pawners, of which about 75% are engaged in subsistence mining. It also supports as many as 2.3 million Filipinos in 30 out of 80 provinces in the country. In 2018, the output from pawners amounted to around $13 million. As for the BSP, the contribution of the pawners to the building of the country's reserves cannot be underestimated. The steady supply of gold from domestic sources, paid with Philippine pesos, enables the BSP to grow its reserve independent of external sources. Further, the BSP's reputation has certainly gained from its involvement in gold. That is, the BSP's steady accumulation of gold through its local trading activities in the 1960s and 70s has led to the construction of a gold refinery. The refinery met LBMA standards and accorded the BSP with worldwide recognition for being the only central bank that operates an LBMA accredited refinery. As a brief background, the BSP's gold holdings in the 1970s, when the bank's reserve levels were low, spurred the central bank to include the precious metal in the GIR. To do so, the locally produced and purchased gold needed to be converted into London good delivery bars. Hence, under President Marcos's directive in 1974, the BSP established a gold refinery suitable in design and capacity for the needs of the country. Gold refining operations formally began in 1977, and by October of that year, in compliance to the requirements set by the LBMA's Physical Committee on Fineness, Weight, Marks, and Appearance, the gold refinery plant, as it was then called, produced its first London Good delivery bar. In September 1979, after meeting LBMA standards, the BSP's gold refinery was formally recognized as an accredited smelter and assayer of good delivery bars. The BSP's gold bars were hence accepted in the international bullion market for trading. It is worth mentioning that the establishment of the BSP's gold refinery plant eventually supplemented the Small-Scale Mining Act that requires spanners to sell their gold to the central bank. Over the years, the BSP's gold refining operations have consistently complied with LBMA standards. In particular, under its responsible gold sourcing policy, the BSP commits to ensure that the source of its gold products meets with the standards set forth by the LBMA, with the ultimate goal of building customer trust. It may be noted that the BSP passed its most recent responsible gold guidance third-party audit for the period November 2018 to 2019 and the proactive monitoring last 2016. Gold accumulation is one way to build the central bank's foreign reserves. Currently, gold represents about 12% of the country's gross international reserves. In terms of gold to GIR ratio, it reached a peak of 55% in 1990. The Philippines ranks 25th in the World Gold Council's official gold holdings as of August 2020. Given the country's relatively small economy, the Philippines ranking speaks a lot about how the central bank highly values the role gold plays as a safe haven asset. For the BSP, sourcing gold from the domestic market makes sense. Buying gold using pesos increases the country's reserves, whereas buying gold with US dollars only alters the composition of the reserves but does not increase it. It is also important to mention that maintaining an adequate level of GIR improves a country's creditworthiness. Creditors and credit rating agencies pay particular attention to a country's GIR level. Finally, a higher level of GIR serves as a buffer against external economic and financial shocks by providing adequate cover for the country's import payments and foreign denominated debt obligations. So why do we hold gold in our reserves? Gold is an effective diversifier of the assets of a central bank. A correlation exercise conducted by the BSP showed that the correlation among global fixed income markets was usually higher than the correlation between gold and each of the individual fixed income market covered. Second, gold provides security more than most other assets since it is considered a hard asset and is not an obligation of any particular government or entity. As such, investors may hold it in perpetuity without regard for credit risk. Likewise, gold is physically indestructible, allowing for the storage of value over time. For this reason, jewelry demand by countries led by China and India accounts for about half of total gold demand. Third, gold may be viewed as a kind of insurance. The correlation analysis previously mentioned also showed that while gold and fixed income assets broadly move together, there will be periods when gold performs positively compared to bonds. This showcases gold's attribute as insurance against the poor performance of other markets, including fixed income. This was observed particularly in periods of risk aversion when investors purchase bullion more than fixed income assets. As such, gold acts not only as a diversifier, but also as insurance, thereby preserving capital when needed. And finally, gold generates liquidity quite easily. Gold is a very liquid asset, and according to the LBMA's clearing data, a daily average volume of 18 to 24 million FTO of unallocated gold were cleared in the first 6 months of 2019. That said, gold can generate dollar liquidity not just by spot sales, but also through other instruments. Finally, the symbiotic relationship between the BSP and the gold market has led to the development of the BSP's gold reserve management capability. As such, the BSP strategy in managing this asset has evolved over the years. The bank can engage in an array of transaction types, namely location swaps, spot trading, deposits, options, futures, gold-backed loans, and gold financial swaps. In engaging in these various transactions, the safety of the asset and the confidentiality of the transactions are of paramount importance. Hence, the BSP has a strict counterparty selection process. Currently, these counterparties are limited to top international financial institutions, taking into consideration credit ratings, financial strength, performance, and other factors in determining exposure limits. Looking ahead, gold will likely remain an important asset for central banks, particularly the BSP, that view gold as a reliable asset in times of uncertainty. It is a good diversifier of the reserve portfolio. In a survey conducted by the World Gold Council in the early part of 2020, for example, 20% of central banks intend to increase their gold holdings in the next 12 months, compared to just 8% of respondents in the 2019 survey. To quote, emerging market and developing economy respondents said that they will increase their gold reserves by more than double the proportion in 2019. Meanwhile, 9% of the advanced economy respondents plan to increase their gold holdings compared to none in 2019. The reasons cited by central banks for the increase in the planned gold purchases are the following. First, the lingering negative interest rates. Second, continuation of expansionary monetary policies due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which will keep interest rates near zero at the foreseeable future. Third, the evaluation of gold's role amidst the ongoing financial and economic uncertainty and concerns about fiscal sustainability. This year, amidst the COVID-19 pandemic that has negatively affected the global economy and led to the continuation of expansionary monetary policies by central banks, gold as an asset class has proven its role as a perfect hedge for uncertainty and as an ultimate insurance. As I already noted, the spot gold price reached an all-time high of $2,075.47 per FTO on August 7, 2020. And many have reasons to believe that prices can move even higher. With the legal framework in place and the tax exemption of gold sales to the BSP and the pawners have been able to collaborate in a manner that is mutually beneficial. Accordingly, the BSP is optimistic that the symbiotic relationship between itself and pawners will continue, and that the corresponding benefits for both the central bank and market participants will remain in place. With this point, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.